The coffee machine hissed like an angry cat as Emma wiped down the counter of her sleepy Texas diner. Another dead morning, just how she liked it since moving to this nowhere town. The bell above the door jingled and she didn't even bother looking up. "Just coffee, darlin'," she drawled, grabbing a clean mug. When no answer came, she finally glanced up and froze. The man standing in her diner looked like trouble carved from oak and leather. Dark jeans worn thin at the thighs, a black Stetson, and shadowing eyes that had seen too much. That scar cutting through his stubble too straight to be accidental. "Cafe con leche," he murmured, his voice rough as gravel under wagon wheels. Emma opened her mouth to reply when the door burst open again. Two ICE agents in their crisp uniforms strode in, eyes scanning the room like predators. The stranger's boot tapped hers under the counter. Once, twice. A silent plea disguised as restless movement. Emma's fingers tightened around the coffee pot. Without missing a beat, she slid his mug across the counter with a sugary smile. "Here you go, honey," she purred, laying on the southern twang thick as molasses. The agent's eyes lingered on the stranger before moving to a booth near the window. The man exhaled slowly, his shoulders relaxing just a fraction. "Gracias, señorita." Emma leaned her elbows on the counter, lowering her voice. "Next time, try not to look like a damn cartel boss ordering breakfast." His lips quirked the first hint of expression she'd seen. "Soy vaquero, not criminal." Emma's eyes dropped to his left hand where a pale band of skin circled his ring finger. "And I'm the Queen of England." The man Alejandro, she'd learn later, didn't flinch, just held her gaze with those dark, unreadable eyes as he took a slow sip of coffee. The steam curled between them like a challenge. Outside, a sheriff's cruiser rolled by, its tinted windows hiding whoever watched from within. Alejandro's fingers tightened round his mug. Emma noticed the way his other hand drifted toward his hip where no gun sat, but where one clearly belonged. "You in some kind of trouble, vaquero," she whispered. He set down the mug with deliberate care. "To do hombre problemas, Benita." The bell jingled again as the ICE agents left. Neither of them moved until the government SUV disappeared down Main Street. Alejandro stood, dropping a 20 on the counter, enough to cover 6 coffees. He tipped his hat, the shadow fouling across his face again. "Hey still Lugo, Riene." Emma watched him go, that strange hollow under her ribs aching in a way she hadn't felt in years. Trouble had just walked out her door, and damn if some part of her didn't want to follow. The Texas sun beat down mercilessly as Emma lugged bags of flour from her truck to the diner's back door. Sweat trickled down her spine, soaking into her worn cotton shirt. She should have done this at sunrise, but last night's whiskey had other plans. A shadow fell across the loading dock. "Need help, Riene?" Emma nearly dropped the 50-pound bag. Alejandro stood there, hat tipped back to reveal those damnably dark eyes. In the daylight, she could see the flecks of gold in them like sunlight through bourbon. "I don't need." The bag slipped. Alejandro caught it with one hand, muscles flexing beneath his rolled-up sleeves. "Claro que no," he murmured, hefting it onto his shoulder like it weighed nothing. Emma wiped her hands on her jeans. "US, talking me now? Returning a favor." He nodded toward Main Street where Sheriff Dawson's SUV idled. "He's been watching your place since yesterday." Ice flooded Emma's veins. Dawson had been her father's best friend until the accident that left Dad dead and the sheriff suddenly driving a new Silverado. Alejandro stepped closer, the scent of leather and sage wrapping around her. "You ask why I need papers so bad?" He pulled a photograph from his wallet, a crumbling adobe ranch house, a grin. An old woman in a wheelchair holding a shotgun. "My abuela." The bank takes her land in 60 days unless. The back door slammed open. "Emma, you gonna?" "Oh." Her baby brother Jake froze, eyes darting between them. At 19, he still had the look of a spooked colt. "Ah, health inspector's here." Alejandro's hand went to his hip again, that phantom gun. Emma grabbed his wrist. "Don't." The scars under her fingers told stories she wasn't ready to hear. Inside, a man in a cheap suit was pocking G at their walk-in fridge. "Violation 7B, mold and ice machine," he droned. Emma's stomach dropped. That meant $500 fine, money she didn't have. Alejandro stepped forward. "Permiso, senor." He flashed a badge so fast Emma barely caught the USDA logo. "Inspección Federal Supersede la Estatal." "Few durs." The inspector paled and scurried out. Jake whooped. "Damn, Em, where'd you find this guy?" Emma stared at the fake badge in Alejandro's hand. "Who the hell are you?" He leaned in, his bria warm against her ear. "The man who can save your diner if you marry me tomorrow." The courthouse clock ticked loudly in the heavy silence as Emma twisted the thin gold band around her finger. The cheap wedding ring Alejandro had produced that morning felt foreign against her skin, still warm from where it had rested in his pocket. She studied him as he paced by the rain-streaked windows, his dress shirt stretching across his broad shoulders with each agitated movement. "You're sure about this?" Jake whispered beside her, fiddling nervously with his camera. At 19, her baby brother still had the wide-eyed look of a spooked colt. That guy's got felony written all over him, Before Emma could respond, the door burst open with enough force to slam against the wall. A woman stormed in all long legs, designer jeans, and barely contained fury. The scent of expensive perfume and cigarette smoke trailed behind her. "Que diablos haces, Alejandro?" Her voice cracked through the room like a whip. Alejandro froze mid-step, his shoulders tensing visibly beneath the thin cotton of his shirt. "Carmen." The single word carried enough weight to make Emma's stomach drop. Of course. The pale band of skin on Alejandro's ring finger. The way he'd hesitated when she'd asked about it. This was the wife. Carmen slapped a newspaper against Alejandro's chest. The headline glaring up at them. "Martin heir returns. Decades-old land dispute reignites." She turned her fiery gaze on Emma, looking her up and down with undisguised contempt. "And you brought a gringa prop to your little charade?" Carmen's laugh was sharp enough to cut glass. "Phew, does she know about the fires? About Los Contratos Falsos?" The overhead lights flickered ominously. Emma stood slowly, her fingers curling into fists at her sides. "What fires?" A crash echoed from the hallway, followed by the unmistakable sound of Sheriff Dawson's booming voice. "The legal alien with outstanding warrants. C8. Ack every room." Alejandro moved with startling speed. He shoved a rusted key into Jake's hand. "Rancho de mi abuela. Ali estares seguros." Then he turned to Emma, his dark eyes burning with urgency. "Decide now. Walk away, or run with me." Jake's phone buzzed violently. He pulled it out, his face going pale as he turned the screen toward Emma. The grainy security feed from their diner showed orange flames licking at the kitchen walls, smoke already clouding the camera lens. Emma didn't he's. She grabbed Alejandro's calloused hand, her own fingers slotting between his like they belonged there. They burst through the courthouse's back exit just as tires screeched to a halt out front. The humid Texas air hit Emma's face like a slap as they sprinted toward Alejandro's waiting truck. Their wedding would have to wait. Survival came first. The truck tires spat gravel as Alejandro swerved onto the ranch road. Emma gripped the door handle, her knuckles white as they bounced over potholes the size of craters. Through the dust-caked window, the property unfolded like a war zone. Fences trampled, pastures scorched black, the skeletal remains of a barn still smoking at the edges. "Jesus Christ," Jake breathed from the backseat. Alejandro's jaw tightened. "This is nothing. Last month they poisoned the well." The main house stood defiant amid the destruction, its adobe walls scarred but standing. An ancient woman in a wheelchair waited on the porch, a shotgun across her lap. "My niño." She raised trembling arms as Alejandro jumped from the truck. Their embrace lasted just a second before she shoved him away. "Why Queen es esta?" Her dark eyes pinned Emma like a butterfly to corkboard. Carmen's car screeched up behind them before Emma could answer. Midnight, the master bedroom, the single bed creaked as Emma shifted. Sharing a mattress with Alejandro should have been awkward, but exhaustion made strangers of them both. Outside, coyotes yipped in the dark. "Ness, you're staring," Alejandro murmured. Emma turned her head on the thin pillow. Moonlight carved his profile from the shadows. That stubborn jaw. The scar she now knew came from a barbed wire fence at age 14. "Tell me about Carmen." The mattress springs groaned as he rolled onto his side to face her. "We married young. For papers." His thumb brushed the absent ring finger. "She disappeared 2 years ago. I thought gunfire cracked in the distance." Both bolted upright. "The Kai." T10 3 a.m. Carmen slammed a whiskey bottle onto the table. "They paid me to leave." Her hands shook as she poured. $50,000 to vanish and never contest the land transfer. Emma watched amber liquid slosh over the rim. "Ooh, the same men who burned your diner." Carmen's laugh was bitter. "Dawson, the bank manager. Your precious Tio Carlos." "Alejandro." The back door burst open. Jake stumbled in, face ashen. "Em, you need to see this." The barn, 3:17 a.m. by flashlight. Freshly painted words glowed blood red. La Tierra es Nuestra beneath it. A crude drawing of a noose. Alejandro's boots crunched on broken glass as he approached the far wall. His flashlight beam caught the edge of something metallic. Emma's breath caught. A cattle brand still warm. The design was unmistakable, Dawson's Ranch logo. The morning sun burned away the last traces of night as Emma scrubbed the red paint from the barn walls. Her arms ached, but the physical pain kept her fro. Thinking about the new symbol now seared into her mind. Breakfast's ready. She turned to find Alejandro holding 2 mugs of coffee. Dark circles hung under his eyes like bruises. He hadn't slept either. "Your abuela is a hell of a cook," Emma said, accepting the mug. The rich aroma of cinnamon and chocolate Mexican coffee surprised her. Alejandro's thumb brushed hers as he passed the cup. "She likes you." A truck rumbled up the driveway, cutting off whatever Emma might have said. Not Sheriff Dawson's vehicle, a sleek black SUV with government plates. The man who stepped out wore a crisp suit and a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "L.S. Carter, Alejandro Martin, I'm Agent Ruiz with Homeland Security." He held up a badge. "We need to talk about your marital situation." The kitchen, 10:15 a.m. Agent Ruiz stirred sugar into his coffee with deliberate calm. "Here's what I know. You," he pointed at Alejandro, "entered the U.S. illegally at age 12. And you, his." Gay shifted to Emma, "just committed felony perjury by claiming to be his wife." Carmen snorted from the corner. "Told you this was stupid." Ruiz ignored her. "But here's what interests me." He dropped a file on the table. Photos spilled out, Sheriff Dawson shaking hands with known cartel members. "Seems your sheriff's been busy." Emma picked up a photo. The date stamp showed last Thursday, the day before her diner inspection. "What do you want?" "A deal." Ruiz leaned forward. "Testify, against Dawson, and Alejandro gets a green card. For real this time." The attic, 2:30 p.m. Dust motes danced in the sunlight as Emma searched through ancient trunks. Abuela had mentioned land deeds hidden somewhere in a house. A floorboard creaked behind her. Alejandro stood in the doorway, holding 2 beers. "Find anything?" Emma wiped sweat from her brow. "Just your childhood porn stash." She held up a water-damaged Playboy. Alejandro choked on his beer. "That's Jake's." Their laughter died when Emma's foot caught on a loose board. Beneath it lay a metal box. Inside, yellow documents bore the Martinez family's seal and fresh ink signatures from Dawson. "These are forged," Alejandro growled. "He stole the land right from under us." Emma's fingers traced the dates. "Same year my father died." Their eyes met. The connection hung between them, electric and terrifying. The porch sunset. Jake burst through the screen door, face flushed. "Oh, come quick." The TV in the living NG room showed a news alert. Sheriff Dawson holding a press conference. "Regrettable accident at the Carter Diner." Carmen cursed in Spanish. "He's covering his tracks." The camera panned to show smoke still rising from the rubble of Emma's life's work. Alejandro's hand found hers. "We fight." Emma squeezed back. "We fight dirty." The screen door slammed behind Emma as she stormed onto the porch, the Texas heat wrapping around her like a suffocating blanket. Her diner, her father's legacy, was now just a pile of smoldering rubble on the evening news. The camera zoomed in on Sheriff Dawson's smug face as he adjusted his Stetson, calling it an unfortunate electrical fire. Alejandro's boots scuffed against the wooden planks as he joined her. He didn't speak, just handed her a sweating bottle of beer. Their fingers brushed a spark that had nothing to do with the static electricity in the dry air. "We'll make him pay." His voice was low, rough with barely contained fury. Emma took a long pull from the bottle, the bitter hops doing nothing to wash away the taste of revenge already blooming on her tongue. "Damn right we will." Inside, Jake was sprawled on the threadbare couch, flipping through channels until he landed on the local access station. "Check this out, city council meeting tomorrow night." Dawson's pushing through some zoning changes. Carmen emerged from the kitchen, her dark hair piled in a messy bun. "Perfect." She tossed a burner phone onto the coffee tab. "What? My cousin works at the courthouse. Says Dawson's been meeting with some suits from Houston every Thursday at the Motel 6. Alejandro's jaw tightened. "Cartel money laundering through land deals." Emma set her beer down with a thud. "So we get proof." The plan formed as she spoke. "Jake, you still have that drone with the camera?" Her brother grinned. "Night vision and audio." She turned to Alejandro. "You're good at sneaking into places." His lips quirked. "I prefer the term strategic infiltration." Carmen rolled her eyes. She grabbed the phone. "I'll get you the room number." The screen door creaked again as Abuela wheeled herself onto the porch, her shotgun across her lap. "Mijo," she said, fixing Alejandro with a stare that could wither cactus. "You bring that gringa into this, you better mean it." Emma's cheeks burned, but Alejandro didn't hesitate. "Abuela." The old woman nodded once before wheeling back inside, leaving them in the heavy silence. The unspoken truth hung between them. This wasn't pretend anymore. The danger was real. The stakes were life and death. And Emma was all in. The neon Motel 6 sign buzzed like an angry hornet, casting a sickly glow across the parking lot. Emma crouched behind a dumpster, the stench of rotting food making her eyes water. 20 yards away, Alejandro pressed flat against the wall near room 214, the one Carmen's cousin had identified. "Drones in position," Jake whispered through the earpiece. His voice crackled with static. "Got visual on 3, no, 4 guys inside." Dawson just popped the beer. Emma adjusted the tiny receiver in her ear. The audio feed hissed, then cleared. "Delivery next Tuesday," a unfamiliar voice drawled. "Same route as last time. Sheriff here will make sure the boys in blue look the other way." Alejandro caught Emma's eye across the distance. Even in the dim light, she saw the fury burning in his gaze. This was bigger than land Dawson was facilitating. Rug runs through their county. A door slammed nearby. Emma froze as a hulking figure rounded the corner. One of Dawson's deputies, taking a smoke break. The glow of his cigarette bobbed closer to her hiding spot. Her pulse roared in her ears. If he checked the dumpster, a rock clattered across the parking lot. The deputy turned toward the sound, hand going to his sidearm. Who's there? Alejandro stepped into the light, his hands raised. Just looking for my dog, officer. His voice had the perfect mix of nervousness and innocence. Little Chihuahua ran off this way. The deputy relaxed slightly. Move along, amigo. This ain't no place for the drone shot past his head like a angry wasp. What the hell? The deputy swatted at it as Jake's laughter crackled in Emma's ear. Go now, Jake hiss. Emma didn't hesitate. She darted to Alejandro's side as the deputy chased the drone into the darkness. Together, they pressed against the wall beneath the motel room window. Your cut's in the usual place, Dawson was saying inside. And remember that Martin Kid's grandma's place needs to be empty by harvest time. Developers are getting antsy. Alejandro's fingers dug into Emma's wrist. She could feel the tension coiling through his body like a live wire. Then the unthinkable happened. A familiar voice spoke inside the room, one that sent ice flooding Emma's veins. Don't worry about the old lady. The voice chuckled. We handled her son 20 years ago. LL break. Emma's father's best friend. The mayor. Alejandro must have seen the realization dawn on her face. He pulled her close, his lips brushing her ear. We need to go. Now. But as they turned to leave, the deputies stepped back into view, his flashlight beam catching them full in the face. Well, he drawled, unholstering his weapon. Look what the cat dragged in. The deputy's flashlight beam burned into Emma's retinas. Her hand flew to her pocket, fingers closing around the SWI. SS Army knife she always carried, pathetic defense against a Glock. Alejandro shifted slightly in front of her. Easy, officer. We were just… Shut your mouth. The deputy thumbed his radio. Sheriff, got some eavesdroppers out here. Static crackled in response. Emma's mind raced. If Dawson came out and found them, a shadow detached itself from the motel wall behind the deputy. Carmen. She moved like liquid night, one manicured hand clamping over the deputy's mouth while the other pressed something sharp to his throat. Drop the gun, Pendijo, she whispered, or I'll give you a second smile. The deputy froze. His pistol thudded onto the asphalt. Emma stared. Since when did manicures include knife training? Carmen rolled her eyes. Don't just stand there, help me drag him. They bound the deputy with his own handcuffs and duct tape from Alejandro's truck. Carmen stuffed a motel washcloth in his mouth. 30 minutes until he's found, she said, checking her watch. Vamanos. The truck tires screamed as they peeled onto the highway. Emma clutched the audio recorder containing Dawson's confession. Her hands wouldn't stop shaking. You knew, she accused Carmen, about my father. Carmen lit a cigarette, the flame trembling slightly. Not until tonight. She exhaled smoke. But I know who did. Your precious Tio Carlos, Alejandro. Alejandro's knuckles whitened on the steering wheel. Impossible. Check the dates, Carmen said. Carlos got promoted to head of security for the developers the same month Emma's dad died. The pieces clicked together with horrible clarity. Emma's father had been investigating suspicious land deals. Carlos Martin, Alejandro's own uncle, had him killed. Jake broke the silence from the backseat. So what now? Emma met Alejandro's gaze in the rearview mirror. The same furious resolve burned in his eyes. Now, she said, we go to war. The rancid smell of burnt coffee filled the tiny internet cafe as Emma squinted at the screen. Jake's fingers flew across the keyboard, hacking into the mayor's email with terrifying ease. Got it, he whispered. A spreadsheet popped up, land parcels, dollar amounts, and a chilling column labeled disposition. Emma's stomach lurched. Next to her father's name, terminated. No loose ends. Alejandro's breath warmed her neck as he leaned in. He pointed to a recent entry of Whale's Ranch, marked for liquidation next week. A hand suddenly clapped Jake's shoulder. Hey, all jumped. Carmen smirked, holding up a USB drive. While you kids were playing hacker, I got the sheriff's mistress to give up his backup drive. She tossed it to Emma. Happy early Christmas. The drive contained videos Dawson taking bags of cash, laughing about wetbacks drowning in the Rio Grande. But the last file made Emma's blood freeze. Security footage from her diner's kitchen. Dawson himself pouring gasoline. Jake sucked in a breath. We've got him. Alejandro's phone buzzed. A news alert, Amber Alert, sheriff's deputy reported kidnapped. Their faces stared back from the screen. Carmen cursed. We need to move. Now, as they piled into the truck, Alejandro caught Emma's hand. Where to? She thought of the one place Dawson would never expect. City Hall. We are crashing that council meeting. City Hall's fluorescent lights buzzed like angry wasps as Emma slipped through the side entrance, the USB drive burning a hole in her pocket. The council chamber overflow. Ed with ranchers and townspeople. Dawson had clearly rigged the turnout for his zoning vote. Alejandro squeezed her hand. Ready? Before she could answer, the mayor banged his gavel. Order. We'll now vote on the Rio Grande Development Act. Emma shoved through the crowd. Actually, we have new business. Her voice carried over the murmurs. Dawson lunged from his seat. Arrest that woman. Carmen blocked the deputies, her phone live streaming. Try it, pendejos. Jake sprinted to the AV bow. Seconds later, the projector lit up with Dawson pouring gasoline in her diner. The crowd erupted. That's Doctor! Dawson shouted. Alejandro stepped forward, playing the motel audio. The mayor's voice filled the room. We handled her son 20 years ago. A gasp rippled through the crowd. Old man Henderson stood slowly, his rancher's hands trembling. Henry Carter was my friend. He turned to the mayor. You murdered him over land. Chaos exploded. As deputies moved in, Alejandro pressed something into Emma's palm, his grandmother's deed. Whatever happens next, he murmured, this land is yours now. Emma clutched the papers, her heart hammering. This wasn't how the story ended. She climbed onto a chair and whistled through her fingers. Enough! The room froze. We have all the evidence. But real justice, she pointed at Dawson, starts with arresting these men right now. To her shock, Deputy Morales stepped forward and cuffed the sheriff. The morning sun painted tea. He ranch in golden light as Emma stood at the fence line, watching Alejandro repair the scorched barn doors. 3 weeks had passed since the arrest. Dawson, the mayor, and Carlos now sat in federal custody awaiting trial. You gonna stare all day, or help? Alejandro called without turning around. Sawdust flecked his shoulders like cinnamon. Emma joined him, their fingers brushing as she steadied a board. The contact sent warmth curling through her chest. Agent Ruiz called, she said. The green cards approved. Alejandro's hammer stilled. I know, you knew. He turned, his calloused palm cupping her cheek. Ruiz offered it yesterday, on one condition. His thumb traced her jawline. I had to be married. For real this time. Emma's breath caught. The papers he'd given her at City Hall, not just the deed. A marriage license, properly filed. You arrogant, manipulative, her words dissolved as his lips met hers, tasting of sawdust and promise. Behind them, a wail whoop. Ed from her wheelchair. Poor Finn. Jake Fagard. Bruce. Carmen tossed a wrench at him. Shut up, Nino. She smirked at Emma. Told you he was trouble. Emma laughed against Alejandro's mouth. Trouble never felt so right.